to have you back. Sorry, apologies for that. We're happy to have you back. Thank you so much for holding in and also coming back. Alan Kogo, good morning. Audio you. Asante sana. I just confirm that you can hear us. And very quickly, we were having a conversation. Where were we?
You were asking me a question.
Yes, I was asking a question about the foundations of political parties in Kenya. Do you think there's any solid foundation of ideology on Kenya's politics and political parties? Do you think there's one party that we can say this party has ideological foundation and has an ideological bearing?
Which one? There is no political party that is based on ideological agendas. Like I mentioned, the Communist Party in China, it was a driven based to push the agenda for socialism in China. But now when you come to Kenya, which is, yes, it's a democratic country, and we're allowed to form as many parties as they can be. And I'm not sure about the statistics of political parties, the number of political parties we have as at now, but I'm sure there are very many. And even today at this point, someone is thinking of forming a political party. And most people who come right now and form political parties are honestly in it, like I said, for business. Okay. People want to get funding from the political party funding. People want to join political parties, maybe to get the per diems that political parties give in their meetings. So the idea of an agenda-based political party is on the backdrop, and it is way far from why a political party is formed in Kenya. Because if you look at most political parties in Kenya, even the ones that have been there since time immemorial, KANU, Ford Kenya, they get to a point and there are so many wrangles, there's so many internal conflict, there's no accountability. So you wonder what is the agenda of any political party? What has the role of any political party played in stabilizing democracy in this country and the politics of it?
All right. Okay, looking about the county governments. I spoke the other day and I said that I think county governments are one of the biggest burdens that we have had. If you can remember post-2013, when Uhuru Kenyatta took over power, there was a question that he was asked mid-Easter, and he was asked, you inherited a very functional economy from President Mwai Kibaki. A very stable economy. Every arm of government seems to have been functioning. Loans as well were at its minimum. But you don't seem to be making any progress as a government. And he said that unlike President Mwai Kibaki, inherited a very bloated government, courtesy of devolution. I've been of the opinion that maybe devolution is one of the biggest mistakes that we ever made as a country. I don't know what you guys think. Because we're seeing even the tussles that are happening in counties. Governors are being held hostage. The battles between governors and MCAs are on its top. The MCAs are in Nairobi today at KRCC to consult. They're having a consultation of the national, all the counties, they're having MCAs are coming into KICC. Mohamed Tangi is under siege. Apparently, he's about to face impeachment. You remember what happened in Nairobi as well. There seems to be a lot of paralysis within counties. So, Kawira Mwangaza, were it not for I don't know, kina Areba ndio walimuokoa wa serikali. Rescued Kawira Mwangaza. Kawira Mwangaza would have been a gone case as we speak. Do you guys think devolution is really or has benefited the people? Areba.
I have used this line several times that devolution was meant to be a very beautiful story in the Republic of Kenya. The framers of the 2010 Constitution, in their wisdom, saw the need to cascade development and representation right from the villages. Unfortunately, that beautiful song turned into a dirge, Nanika tukaenda luwere. What was meant to be a simplification form of representation, oversight, legislation, and development from mashinani turned out to be some kind of king-making down from the ward level. In that now you are having a first lady of a ward, you are having an MCA. I think it's just crazy. And for me, I always say, let's look at how much we put into the devolution vis-a-vis what we get out in terms of development. I know this might get me lynched somewhere, but truth be told, I think devolution as it's going seems to be one of the biggest scams of our time. And why I am saying the biggest scams of our time, if you meet most of the governors, they'll tell you that for the last 1 year, they have not done any development. But then they have been paying salaries. And the question is, I mean, I am paid a salary, Bitok. The reason why I'm paid a salary is to work.
Yes.
If then, for the last 3 months, I have not been able to deliver at my workplace, why will I be paid a salary? Governors sometimes end up having an absorption rate of as low as 15% to development, as opposed to 75% in terms of the funds they get to recurrent expenditure. I mean, what I'm saying, Bitok, nile, unatumia shilingi 10 kufanya development ya shilingi 3. This is where Atwili needs to come and slap the table and say, Shenzi, how? Because how do you justify, if you have worked in the development world, when you're applying for, let's say, a grant, when you're getting some funds, there is a set maximum in terms of the amount that you can use to administer that fund. But you see now, in devolved systems, it's vice versa. You use 75% to administer development of 15%. Really? And every day we keep on talking about, I think, a bloated wage bill, pending bills, and all that. We are now having governors who just employ left, right, and center. We're having governors who have put everybody on their payroll. I mean, the priorities of most county governments are now governors' residents. And you wonder, as a governor, when you are coming, you don't have a place to stay? Why would you prioritize the governor's residence as a priority, and yet the local dispensary does not have medication? So I think this devolution has just turned out into a monster that just keeps taking and it's not giving out. And unless we are ready to have a realistic conversation about this devolution, then at the end of the day, taxpayers are not going to get value of their money. Some people are going to see this clip and call me anti-devolution. No. The question I'm asking is, are our people getting the real value of what was meant to be devolution? You go to most of our county assemblies right now, whereas they're busy making noise that they want car grants, they want what and they want what. Most of them, they finish a year without debating anything in those county assemblies. The only bills they debate are mandatory money bills. Right now, walk into Siaya County and ask them for the last close to 1 year, show us all these committees which have been going to. I mean, Bitok, today, if you throw a stone anyhow in Mombasa, you will hit an MCA on a benchmarking trip. Walk into most of these Nairobi hotels, Bitok, today. When you walk into a reception, you will see a card, XYZ County Assembly. Walk into Mombasa today, Bitok, I can swear, we can bet $1 million. If today you walk into some of these hotels on the coastal strip and you miss a county assembly, I'll give you $1 million. But then those people, once they go and they come back, there is no output. Whereas sometimes we complain that there's a lot of wastage in the National Assembly. Sometimes when you sit down and you try to watch, you can see debates here and there, you can see committees questioning people here and there. But for the county assembly,
it's no use.
God save us.
And I think Nani has given us a small preview of what exactly happens in those retreats. Adan Dwala, in his book, For the Record. For the record, he has told us about laptops and everything as that goes on there. It's like there's a lot of clerical work that happens in there. But now the biggest question, Esther, is were we even never really ready for devolution, and did we even have a roadmap? For instance, if you look back at 2013, most of the politicians, the big shot politicians in the country went for Senate seats because they actually imagined that maybe the senators were bigger than the governors. And another thing is that since the advent of devolution, we have not been able to fund. There's no government that has successfully funded devolution. Is it time we just swallowed our pride and said, fine, I think this thing is not for us?
Well, I think devolution was a beautiful idea.
What was the idea? Because
Devolution
there
was-
seemed to have been no backing idea, really. Any roadmap? What was the roadmap?
The roadmap of devolution was to empower people at the very local levels, rather than having only the top people in national government and not feeling the much impact on the person at the bottom level. So at the start, and like everything in our beautiful country, Kenya, our country, Kenya, as he says, devolution is not working, and maybe we should get to a point when we just say, no, it's not working, let's find a solution. Our country has very beautiful ideas. If you want to find any administrative ideas on paper, any best ideas administrative on paper, you'll find it in our country, Kenya. And when now it comes to implementing all those things that we need to implement on the ground, there is very little that can be done. There is too much politicization, that I would say. Devolution was a beautiful idea that has been interrupted by politicization, as it has been in the case in every other government, with devolution or no devolution. Yes. Now, looking at this case where since August 2019, there has never been a good formula or a relatable formula to agree on the amounts being shared between the two levels of government. And there have been delays of disbursements, there have been stalemates, and even right now there has been disagreements on how county revenue should be shared with the CRA, County Revenue Allocation, National Treasury, Council of Governors, each of them giving different stories. Now governors say we are cash strapped. We don't have money for this. We can't pay our workers. When we receive the cash, we don't know whether we should go for development or pay salaries. Now, how are we going to develop? So this hula baloo is something that I think goes on and on. If there was devolution or if there was no devolution, because the political hygiene of Kenya is one to be questioned. Kenyans, the political hygiene of Kenya will always find an avenue for siphoning money, will always have an avenue for corruption. So we can't blame devolution, as much as it's provided opportunities for more people to create a bloated wage bill. Yes, it was an avenue for providing that. But at the same time, if we did not have devolution, is it a question that would say we would not be facing the same challenges? So with the developments that we are, with the developments and the advantages that we are getting with devolution, I feel that we should continue that way, and let's find solutions. Let's deal with the challenges that we are facing, because there is no other solution. There is no other better solution that is going to come out. Even if we say that let's do away with devolution, the next thing we're going to do, the next option we're going to have away from devolution, is still going to be faced by the same challenges.
Okay. All right. So devolution is going to be faced by the same challenges that we are seeing. All right. Okay. Interesting.
I mean, I think for me the problem comes with the reason why we elect some of these governors and some of these MCAs. I will give a classical example. Of course, I'm politically active. I'll give a classical example of an MCA who was elected some times back. And most people said, wacha tupigie huyu kura, huyu ni mtu ameteseka na sisi, anaendesha baiskeli. I kept on asking them, do you think at the county assemblies there will be a bicycle competition so that whoever you are electing can go and flourish there? They said, hapana, huyu anasumbukana na sisi, wacha tumutume huko. That guy ended up getting into the assembly, and he knew nothing, and the nothing he knew, he did not know it well. Because we are yet to realize the importance of a county assembly. People are yet to realize that a county assembly is the lowest, or rather it's the first point of call when it comes to legislation, representation, and oversight. In that, the problems that you face I don't know which village my sister you come from. Which village do you come from?
I come from Wemilabi village. That's in Vihiga County.
That sounds like some medicine. Okay, so the challenges that you face in Wemilab, it's not the president who's supposed to see them.
Yes.
Your local ECD primary school, it's not the CS for education, my friend Machogu, who's supposed to come and solve those problems. The road that you use to your home, that very tiny road with no drainage where you always get stuck. When you come from Nairobi, you have to sometimes ask a donkey to come and pick you from the market center. It's not about the president or the CS for roads, Kipchumba Murkomen. The essence of devolution was to solve those basic challenges
development, not
on the ground. Or rather, spar development. I mean, sparring development is solving challenges. In that the local dispensary, which your grandmother goes to, is not supposed to be dealt by Susan Nakumicha. It's supposed to be dealt by the CC for health.
Yes.
But then, what happened? What happened is that we got MCAs into office because of other reasons other than the set legal provisions.
Is that the problem of devolution, or it's the problem of the political system of Kenya? Are there any better MCAs who would champion the development process?
Name for me 5 from your county assembly.
MCAs.
Yes. I mean, go back to your county assembly and see what they have done for the last 1 year. You'll find them, some others went to benchmark in Rwanda how to sweep roads. I mean, when I was in college and I needed to do my dissertation, there was a comparative study. I never left Eldoret. I did the comparative study through Googling. I don't know why, when it comes to some of these positions, you feel the need that if you have to do a comparative study well, you have to go through JKI and go somewhere. And then when they do that comparative study, I have never seen a county assembly coming back and saying, we went for a comparative study in Malaysia on how to do this, and this. 6 months down the line, this is our success story coming from the comparative tour that we went. And then still I go back to the question I asked. Why is it that the absorption rate of development is lower than the recurrent expenditure? In that we fuel cars, we pay salaries, we pay allowances, we buy airtime, we go for retreats, we do everything. But then when it comes to development, ideally all these things are supposed to facilitate what? Development. In that the reason why you wake up and have breakfast is because you want to come to work. But then after having all this expenditure supposed to facilitate the development, you end up not doing any development.
Okay.
I mean, Bitok, I agree with you. We need to have a conversation, a very serious conversation about devolution. I know in some places it has worked. Or rather, you can have some pockets of things you can say, this one worked because of devolution. I mean, Nyamira County built something that looks like a petrol station and called it a stadium. I mean, and then you wonder, surely, where are we headed?
But then again, should we say devolution has succeeded because a governor built a stadium? I think there needs to be more development capacity building.
Yeah, and another thing is that I think the government does not listen to devolution experts. The government puts away. I don't know about Samba. Are you in an advisory role in position? I think minds like yours should be sitting in spaces to be able to advise on.
No, they don't want us.
They don't want you. See, they push devolution experts aside, and they want to go to this side of people who have no idea about devolution. They are not open to getting they are not open to listening to people, the legal experts and experts in devolution. So you only wonder then what is the way forward then?
Okay, all right. Let's keep that discussion going. I don't know, the tacklers watching us this morning, I don't know what you think about that. Do you think it's time we really have a discussion around devolution and the cost of running devolution vis-a-vis the benefits that is coming in from devolution? Governors have continued to complain about the lack of financial support from the national government to run counties. So the question is, can we afford it? 70%, over 70% or 75%, or even up to 80% of revenue sent to counties, most of them end up in recurrent expenditures for most counties. There's nothing much that comes out for Mwananchi. So the big question is, and that's the big question that I'm actually asking, can we really afford devolution? Is it time we had a discussion around devolution? Is it time we actually disbanded it? Is it time as a question for you as a citizen. Good to see you, James Rat. John Chirano, good to see you finally. James Rat, I've tried to understand this Article 37. Does it suspend all other articles in the Constitution for it to be enjoyed? My right to earn a living should also be respected. I think that is on the freedom when they were killing. Article 37 is on freedoms of
association and freedom and to demonstrate.
So, court following closely. All right. So another story that's of course made the headlines this week is the failing of the bipartisan talks, and both sides have actually said no. Tumekwama. The opposition side are saying that they still want to have the demonstrations running as they have the conversation. Otiendo Molo has said that at no single point was the demonstration part of the menu on the bipartisan talks. And he's saying that demonstration is a right guaranteed by the Constitution, so that can run even as the talks are ongoing. And Kenya Kwanza are saying, you pick one. Either you're having maandamano or you're having the bipartisan talks. And that is the collapse of bipartisan talks. So the question is, what then is left? What next for the country? Which way out?
Article 37, every person has the right peaceably and unarmed to assemble, to demonstrate, to picket, and to present petitions to public authorities. I know my very good friends in Azimio have very brilliant legal minds. And if we were to go in strict sense of that Article 37, then they would have had one demonstration.
Exactly.
Because then every week, are you going to present the same petition to the public authorities? That as it may be, we have seen the untold suffering that has been caused to innocent Kenyans in the name of demonstration. Before schools were closed, every week when there were demonstrations, we could get an alert from where our kids go to school that please, for the safety of the kids and the safety of their transport and everything, please let them not come to school tomorrow. We have seen how some towns become ghost towns because businesses do not open because of the fear that things will go wrong. I mean, look at yesterday. Somebody had left Mombasa with cargo, hoping to drop it in Uganda. The lorry was burnt on the superhighway. I saw you sharing a clip of very many vehicles which had been stoned on the southern bypass. There is a good friend of mine in Kibra who used to run a hardware. Right now we're trying to organize a fundraising for him to restore back his hardware. There is conversation that has just come that a petrol station on Juja Road was vandalized. Then what are we calling peaceable demonstrations? I mean, let us be realistic. These are no longer rights which will be enjoyed as per Article 37.
Okay.
There is an ulterior motive which is supposed to be achieved through all this, hiding behind Article 37 and hiding on issues of constitutional provisions. Because why is it that every time then there is a demonstration, there has to be destruction of property? Some looting happens. In some instances, we have had loss of lives. Is that what is anticipated under the precincts of Article 37? No. And we have to call out this kind of nonsense with all. We have to call it out. Okay. This is no longer about the provisions of Article 37. This is no longer about the cost of living. This is no longer about, I don't know, opening the servers. I don't know where those servers are. I mean, I participated in litigation in the Supreme Court in Raila Odinga versus William Ruto and 6 others. And the issue of servers was dealt in court. This is not about the 2022 elections. This is something else. Because we have to call it as it is. We have seen demonstrations in other jurisdictions. We have seen thousands marching in their numbers in South Africa. And in very few instances, we have seen destruction of property. And in Kenya, demonstrations are synonymous to destruction of properties. I was looking at our parking lot yesterday, and nobody left the house. How are we supposed to lower the cost of living? How are we supposed to drive the economy forward if some of these people keep on saying we'll demonstrate, and people cannot go to work because their demonstrations are filled with criminal elements. This is not about Article 37.
Okay. What are your thoughts?
And now, you would say it is not according to Article 37 of the Constitution, but I appreciate it that there was a time that you could not demonstrate in this country. There was a time if you raised your voice to speak against the government, you'd be held and taken to torture house and done whatever they could do with you. But at this time, we have the practice of that. And at the beginning of these demonstrations, I was fully in support of the demonstrations because as the Constitution, as he has read the Constitutions and say that everyone has a right to demonstrate and picket peacefully, that is what they were doing. And I also feel that the Azimio Brigade is not intentionally going to the streets to cause chaos, to cause destruction of property. It is not, I'm very sure where Honorable Raila is seated right now. If he says that I want to go and demonstrate and present my petition because of this and exercise my constitutional rights, it is not his intention to burn down property, to destroy property, to cause chaos. That is an effect of demonstration, yes? That is an after thing of the demonstration, something that comes with it, because there are Kenyans that are in support of this demonstration, Samba. I saw a lady yesterday, she was selling some food at a kibanda, and she was asked, what do you think about the demonstrations? Akasema, mimi ni mfanyi biashara, lakini tunataka hizo servers zifunguliwe tujue nini kwa hapo ndani. You see? So there are Kenyans who are supporting these demonstrations, and there are Kenyans also who are taking advantage of this situation. So like I said, at the beginning I felt like the demonstrations were on a point of goodwill. And I can only imagine what would happen if that Sunday at 4 p.m., President Ruto would not come out and say that I'm extending an olive branch to my brother Raila Odinga. I can only imagine what would have happened if he had not done that. So there is a goodwill. There's a goodwill with the government. The government is taking steps. The government is looking forward to listening to the grievances, to sitting down with them. And now when we came up with the bipartisan talks now, and we say that, okay, fine, let's sit down together on the table, let's do this. At this point where Azimio said, no, let's go back to the streets, that is where they lost us again. Because now, like he said, what is it about? Yes, we've extended an olive branch to you and told you that let us sit together and agree. Yes, and I have no problem with these demonstrations. With these bipartisan talks and the talks, because if we sit down, if three of us were to get into a deal and say we need to come up with this, we might not agree today. We might not agree after 2 weeks, but something might come up. Let us sit down and talk rather than going back to the streets, because the demonstrations are causing a huge. They're causing a huge deter to our economy. We're just from the COVID period in 2020. We've been faced by a drought situation. Look at what's happening to the counties. Look at what's happening to the world forces, the dollar rates, the war in Ukraine and Russia. So then why it only beats logic for someone to think that, is it not out of self-interest that someone would bring something like that at this time, as much as it is your constitutional right? Yes? It is your constitutional right, but at whose expense are you practicing your constitutional right? Okay. We are scaring away investors. Yesterday you saw a truck being burnt down on Langata Road as it was heading to Uganda, transporting some steel materials. Now, is that investor going to want to invest in the country again? So the olive branch that was extended to the Azimio team, yes, it is your right to practice the demonstrations, but look, at whose expense are you practicing these demonstrations?
Okay. But now what does that also say about the quality of our representation? Because the Constitution says that all sovereign power belongs to the people, but can be exercised through
legislators, yes.
So what does it say about if we can actually say we are giving our representatives a responsibility to negotiate on our behalf, to sit somewhere as people you've elected, and they come back and they're saying they have not agreed? What does that say about the quality of our representation and actually the vanguard of democracy as it is leadership?
Let us just keep on doing it. Mm-hmm. You know, I won't hold them on to high standards and say, you're legislators, this is your role, this is what you're supposed to do, because we understand that there are so many factors to be involved there. So if we call ourselves together and say, let us form this committee and let us form my side and my side and your side, we might fail to agree on very many issues, but let us keep on doing it because we know the demonstrations are not going to solve any problems. Okay. Going outside every time, that is not a solution. Like, I want to agree with Samba when he said, when done once or maybe twice, you see, even when people demonstrate about maybe cuts salaries and maybe office wrangles, trade union organizations, when they demonstrate, you don't see them every day. The same, it goes back to the boardrooms to be solved. And when it goes to the boardrooms and the committees to be solved, it is not a guarantee that we are going to solve that on day one. It is not a guarantee. Do you know how long a mediation process takes place? Do you know how long an arbitration might take place? And at state level. So it is, like I said, I wouldn't want to hold them on high standards and say that you should do this. But whatever problem comes, if Canaan is the problem, how are we going to deal with Canaan? If this is the problem, how are we going to deal with that problem? Let's put Canaan out of the picture. That is what you want. Let us get to an agreement.
I think the problem is
Areba, Samba, as you pick it up, ni nini mtego kufungua sava? Hata mimi nataka kuona sava ina mwanga. Hii sava naongelea hata mimi.
Kimani chungu alisema zitafunguliwa.
I mean, you know, now, the elections that usually take place in Kenya, manual elections, they're only complemented by an electronic system. Maina Kiai case in 2017 set the stage on how elections and results are announced in Kenya. I participated in election planning, election management. I participated in the National Tallying Center at Bomas, where of course there was some chaos. I participated in litigation in the Supreme Court. At Bomas, what used to happen is that all the Form 34As from constituencies will come and be verified against the results which are in the portal. So the primary data for announcement of the results is not the portal or the server. The server is a complementary mechanism. The primary document which is relied on is the results which is announced in at the polling station. And a copy of that result affixed on the door of that polling station. Another copy affixed on the presidential ballot box. And another copy given to the agents. So let me repeat, the server was complementary. Results were not announced on the basis of what is in the server. Results were announced on the basis of what constituency returning officers physically brought to Bomas.
Okay.
All those days when you were asking us what we were doing at Bomas, day and night, we were verifying results from all the constituencies. And the issue of the server again came in the Supreme Court. And I remember one time a judge asked him, are you trying to say that what is contained, you remember the Jose Camargo fiasco, are you trying to say that what is contained here is different from what is contained in? And it was exhaustively dealt in the Supreme Court. Okay. And the moment the Supreme Court made a decision on that, that issue was closed. Unless, our law does not provide an appeal mechanism of a presidential petition, because the first court of the first court is the Supreme Court, and the end court is the Supreme Court. Let me say this without contradiction, Gerald. This is not about the 2022 elections.
Okay.
This is about other interests. Because on the issue of 2022 elections, this was squarely dealt by the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court pronounced itself on that.
Okay.
This is not about the cost of living. We don't lower the cost of living by demonstrating.
How do
We lower the cost of living. Right now, a week ago, I was at my farm trying to see how the maize is going. That is how the cost of living is lowered.
Okay.
All these productive young men here running around on the roads should head back to the villages and help cultivate their crops. That is how the cost of living. Of course, there are interventions that can be put in government, and those are some of the discussions that we expected could have been done through this structured way. Remember the way we are doing this mandamano. We are not talking to each other. There is no solution that you can have by walking through Kibra, going to Kawangware, heading to Isli, going Nini, and all that. I don't know why we bypass Karen and where you live, Gerald. But there is no solution that you can have by just coming out of a sunroof of a nice vehicle and saying, we want the cost of living to be low. If you have ideas, there should be a structured way, which the president proposed, that come, let's talk. Probably there is no monopoly of ideas. You can be in the opposition, but you might have a better idea on how we can do these things. Come, let's talk. But at the end of the day, what? Those guys have said. And that is why I'm saying, again, it's not about Kenyans. This is not about you. And the sooner you realize, the better.
The better.
These demonstrations are not about your interests.
Yeah.
The people who are organizing and funding and all this have two main agendas. The first agenda is trying to regroup for 2027. The second agenda is, of course, ensuring that the William Samoei Ruto administration does not succeed, so that in 2026 you come out and say, tuliwapigia kura. Simuone, hakuna kitu walifanya. Because as Atwoli said, power transition. ilienda. So it is not about what Kenyans are facing. This is about 2027, and this is about destabilizing the current government. Because how do you lower the cost of fuel by always driving in a convoy and passing by a slum and telling people, tunataka bei ya mafuta ipunguzwe? How do you lower that? Wajinga walisha.
And you see, what to see wajinga, ban? You see, yesterday I was following up on the motorcade that was coming from Lavington through Kibra. And you know, mtu alisema ni game ya swara na dogi.
Kimbizana.
The police were chasing after Raila's motorcade and his people. Waki speed up, pia wana speed up. So you look and wonder now, what, you know, like someone like Raila Odinga is a respectable person in this country, you know? What positions are you putting yourself into? And I say he's respectable because I myself, I don't underrate Raila Odinga. That, you know, he is a voice of people who want their voices to be heard through heckles and the demonstrations, because it is unsatisfactory for some Kenyans to believe that I will present my grievances through my legislator. When you can't even sometimes you can't call your legislator and they pick up your call. So what do Kenyans think? He's the figure of that person that will take me out to the streets to demonstrate and air my grievances to in opposition to the government. So I respect the position of Raila Odinga, and I would say I do not underrate his positions. So if I was William Ruto today, I would look at, but now I'm not. Now let me just get to Esther Nyonje.
Get back to reality.
Let me get back to reality. And also the reality that we have on the ground is that, yes, it is not about the self-interest of a Kenyan. It is a political strategy. But the reality is that it is going on by a person who can say, let us go to Kamukunji today at 10 a.m. it's 9 or 7. A person who can wake up today and say, let us go to Kamukunji at 10 a.m. and the ground will be full. Okay? He says,
will you be there at Kamukunji?
I won't be there, but the people who will be there.
Why?
I won't go to Kamukunji.
Why will you not be at Kamukunji?
A choice.
No, it's not a choice.
It's the same way.
It's because you have something to do.
No, it's
Let's be realistic.
No, the majority populace. Do they have something to do?
So you're saying there are more unemployed Kenyans?
Yes, it's true. I agree with that. I would agree with that. But my point is that Raila Odinga is a charismatic leader. Raila Odinga, if someone can convince people not to eat, Samba, Gerald, not to eat. Ukiambiwa usikule 2 days utaanguka. I'm trying to bring a point. I'm saying if someone can convince you not to eat and you don't eat until you die, you see that was Mackenzie at his level. Mm-hmm. So you see how people can be drawn to a person. Mm-hmm. It could be a political figure, it could be a social figure, it could be a religious leader, but the idea of people being drawn to a chauvinistic person is real. And that is the position of Raila Odinga. Yes? So Raila, if someone said Raila when he coughs, we listen. Akifanya nini, tunafanya. So consider these people. You are dismissing, and I don't like that about Kenya Kwanza team. Kenya Kwanza team dismisses Raila Odinga. Kenya Kwanza team underrates Raila Odinga, or they want to put his importance under the table. I can tell you for sure, I voted for William Ruto myself. I have said that today on the show now. I voted for William Ruto, but at this point, I think William Ruto should find a way on how to accommodate Raila Odinga, because Raila Odinga has been a topic of discussion since the first president to the 5th president. Who are you? He's not tired. That is the reality. He's not tired. So who are you today to come and say that kama ulisumbua wengine sisi hautatusumbua? This claims about assassination. You see, claims about assassination, they attach Raila Odinga. And even if you say that I'm going to enjoy your security, watu watajitokezea na wasema tunaenda kuchunga baba. Now what to do? Find a way to accommodate.
So unasema akula handshake history.
Sisemi akuli handshake. Sijasema handshake.
That's the only doubt that has worked before.
Mimi sijasema handshake. There are so many things. I'm not for handshake. I'm not for a power sharing deal. No. But I am for,
that's the only proven remedy.
No, it's not. You see, it's very ironical that mtu kama Martha Karua was for Kibaki against Raila, and right now is for Raila Odinga. William Ruto felt like he was sidelined. He was supposed to be PM if Raila won those elections in 2007.
So
he was supposed to be PM, and then when he was not now PM, and then Raila went for the handshake, akapelekwa pale agriculture, akapelekwa education, you see. So power levels zikakuja chini. So most people are getting this handshake right now, one, because of self-interest, but not necessarily, it doesn't necessarily need to be a handshake, but he needs to find, I don't know what he will do, but find a way to accommodate this person. Because this person has the masses with him. And do you know the masses can be more powerful than a government? Okay. Yes, you're commander-in-chief, but those masses also have the power. So find a way to deal with this person, because at state level, Raila is lethal.
My prayer to William Ruto is that he should find a way of accommodating the number of young men who are jobless. He should find a way of accommodating
hustlers.
How are they going to be accommodated? He
should find a way of accommodating Kenyans who are suffering under the cost of living. He should find a way of accommodating business people who are suffering under the high cost of production. I mean, thinking of accommodating one man who lost elections, I think it's just putting a lot of importance to one gentleman. We all respect the stature and personality of one Raila Odinga, but I think it needs to get to a point where we say enough is enough. Okay. He lost the elections. Let him prepare for 2027. I mean, periodically thinking of accommodating a winner of a general election, then I think we...
A winner or a loser?
Periodically thinking of how to accommodate a loser of a general election, then we are setting a very wrong trend, which is not equal to the tenets of what is anticipated in the social contractarian theory, which provides on the reason why we have elections. If then we think about how to accommodate Raila Odinga, then I will get back to my county in Nyamira County and think on how to accommodate my good friend Walter Nyambati, who was number 2 in the gubernatorial election. You have to go to Uasin and think about how to accommodate who was number 2 after Kotimbili.
Kotimbili was ambassador.
You have to think about how to accommodate Bwana PS. We can cascade it down to the MCA level, and I think about how to accommodate number 2 who become an MCA. If I go to my constituency, in Kitutu Masaba constituency, then the current MP, Gisairo, should think on how to accommodate now the Solicitor General, who was number 2. We will be setting a very nasty trend in our political setup, which I don't think we are ready to deal with. Because then, why will we have the IBC if in every election, after the election, we always have a conversation by my sister Nyonje here.
So that we can know the number 2.
Then let's just get away of even folding pieces of paper and calling the presidential candidates and telling them, kila mtu achukue yake. So that number 1 anachukua yake, number 2 tunakumaccommodate. Na tunarudi, so that we can save the taxpayers' money. But for me, that would be a very dangerous trend of thinking always how to cater for number 2 in an election setup. Because ideally in an election setup, number 2 is as good as number 7. There is nothing as being number 2. Ni kama bila Arsenal itakuwa number 2 na Chelsea yenye iko namba ngapi. There will be no difference. Na vile Man U pia iko namba ngapi. There will be no difference. So the point I'm trying to make, Bitok, is to sanitize our political setup and an electioneering system. We should not be able to encourage all this shaking of hands, shaking of legs, and doing all this kind of nonsense. Whoever wins, let them dispense their mandate as per the set down legal mechanisms. Whoever becomes number 2 is as good as whoever becomes number 7. Let them wait until the next election comes. Because now, if we think about accommodating Raila, tunawacha wapi Wajakoya? Because Raila and Wajakoya hakuna tofauti. Si wote hawakuwa number 1?
Na Mwaure.
Lakini Wajakoya kwa number 2.
Na Mwaure.
Only comparison number 2.
No. Number 2 is as good as number 5.
It's okay.
So let's sanitize our political arena and say no to all these conversations of accommodation which are being perpetuated by my sister here. My sister here is she's an agent of Azimio.
No, I said I voted for Raila. I'm not an agent of Azimio.
You just said you voted for Raila.
Bruto,
she's trying to use a flowery language of saying let us accommodate.
No.
Which is that accommodation? Let us get a way of dealing. That is a massaged handshake she's talking about. And we're not going to accept that. Kila mtu abebe mzigo wake. Kama wewe ni number 2, chapa kazi yako ya opposition. Kama wewe ni number 7, enda lisha ngombe zako.
You know what, Samba? I will say it again. I voted for Ruto and I'm a government supporter. At this point, I support the Kenya Kwanza project. I support the plan. I support Kenya Kwanza. But what is the situation that we have right now? Now, how are we going to deal with that situation? That's number 2 you're talking about. Is just not any number 2. And I agree that the electoral systems should not get to a point where we go to vote and then look at how to accommodate the number 2s you're talking about. But Samba, who is this number 2? This number 2, like I said, is a little person. You say that the president should accommodate youth, not Raila. The president should focus on his bottom-up agenda, not focusing on this one person. The president should look at looking for foreign direct investments, for foreigners to come and invest in Kenya, to curb with food shortages, inflation, and the challenges that we are facing. How is it going to work when this number 2 is a nuisance?
If you face a nuisance.
If you face it is a nuisance because It is a nuisance. The situation is a nuisance. Not himself is a nuisance. The situation that is being brought by this person is a nuisance. Because yesterday, maybe someone wanted to come to Kenya to come kujivinjari Kenya, and then they saw that demonstrations are on again. They can't come to the country. That is money we've lost. You see, now how is the president going to focus on his agenda when he does not accommodate this little person I'm talking about?
You know the glorification of my sister here of that of the loser of the number 2 person is something that we need to really get out of the minds of the very many people who are saying, lethal, sijui bold person, sijui baba yao, sijui showstopper. No. Let's call nonsense as it is. I think this is just all nonsense. I think we cannot just come from an election and we are thinking about man and handshake. And the person who's leading you all to this, at the end of the day, retreats to his palatial home, receives government perks. I don't know why he still receives government perks and he's still a nuisance. That's an issue that I'm sure it's being picked up. This is a person who, at the end of the day, once he demonstrates, he goes to a massage, and for you have to trek all your way to where you live. I mean, let's call bullshit out as it is. I think this constant weaponization of an electoral system, in that we come from an election and the loser immediately thinks about how he's going to be accommodated, in the words of my sister here, I think it's something that we have to move away from. Okay. Gerald, I take you back as to why we're having leaders, and the social contractarian theory is that leadership is it has term limits. Since not everybody can represent their interest at the table, different people come and they seek the permission to represent the interests of the masses at the decision-making table. Depending on the level of conviction, the masses choose one of that person. They give them that contract socially to be able to represent their interests. Then there is a set term limit. That set term limit is for review of whether the chosen representative is executing the social contract as per the agreement. If then the chosen representative is deemed that he is executing the social contract as it was given, then a term limit is extended. If it's a governor second term, if it's an MP a second term. But if the masses deem that this person we gave our social contract is not doing as we had instructed them to do, then they have the right to terminate that contract by choosing another person. Now then, fast forward, if we then say that the person who has been given the social contract and the person who has not been given the social contract have to accommodate each other, what are we saying about our electoral processes?
We are saying that theoretically, the social contract is there, that a government gets into a social contract with the people for a period of time. Yeah. That is what is there theoretically. Yeah. That is what is there theoretically. But we have a situation. How are we going to deal with it? Okay. How are we going to deal with it? Dealing with this situation is not a situation that you deal with you have to deal with it in a delicate manner, because Samba here he's proving my point. Like I said, he's really proving my point to say that very many people underrate Raila Odinga because he says, I'm glorifying him, I'm doing much. I'm not glorifying him. If Raila said, he said, I can't go to Kamukunji because Raila Odinga said I'll go to Kamukunji. But I'm thinking of people who have him at heart. I'm thinking of people who have his chauvinism at heart. Yes. So
people who love him.
People who love him. And they're not 2 people. They're not 3 people. There's a section of Kenya that still believes that Raila Odinga should be president. You see?
Should.
Mm-hmm. They still believe that he should be president. And these people he's not president. These people can do anything to go out of their way to prove that. So we have a president, yes. And he was given the sword by son of Mamangi, son of Jomo. Son of John. He was given the sword by him. So yes, Ruto is powerful and he's the president. We know that. But deal with this person. And dealing with this person is a delicate situation. It's a situation where you walk on eggshells because already we are an ethnically fragmented country. So when we start bringing these issues again, I don't want to say what is going to happen in this country.
22 minutes past 9 a.m. Victor K2, it's time to have the most difficult conversation with regards to devolution. Devolution is only good in the theory or papers, but practically nearly impossible to implement. I think it was too aspirational. Okay, the graphics, what do you say? Paul Ube, Salimia Samba, my colleague at Maraga Task Force, at Serikal. Vincent Barkuto, good morning, GB, connecting from Nande East. Good to see you. People's Power, Alkemina from West Pokot. All right. Eric Wafula, the opposition should give this government an opportunity to work. Vincent B, devolution should be disbanded and municipalities reinstated. All right. I want to take in your tackles of the day. I'll start with you, Wakili. It's your tackle of the day.
My tackle of the day. If we always think after an election that we have to accommodate each other, the winners and the losers, then it's also time we think about how to spare taxpayers' money in terms of conducting very expensive elections. Mm-hmm. I look in the eye and say, probably it's now time we start folding pieces of paper and calling aspirants in a room and just doing it like a raffle so that everybody picks, because at the end of the day, then we will be having a conversation about the number 2, the number 3, and the number 4 ganging up to be accommodated. Then what is the need of an election? And if at all we are to think about accommodating the loser at the national level or the presidential level, then we have to think about accommodating the loser at the gubernatorial level, the loser at the women rep level,
MCA level,
the loser at the MP level, the loser at the senator level, the loser at the MCA level. And also, if I go to an interview today to be a principal secretary and I become number 2, then public service has to get away of accommodating me. If today I apply for a tender from government and after evaluation I become number 2, then the winner has to get away of accommodating me. If today I want to buy property and I realize that somebody has offered more money, then I should not let the one who bought it enjoy a piece of that. That person who bought it has to accommodate me. I mean, at the end of the day, I was number 2, I was number 3. I need to be accommodated. That is my tackle of the day.
All right. Esther, what's your tackle of the day?
My tackle of the day is that Kenya is a beautiful country. We've come a long way to lose all that we've had. We've had a very ugly scenes in the past. We've seen what has happened. People have lost lives. And we don't want to get to a point where people will start being refugees. There are refugees from other countries who come to the country to find solace in Kenya. So let's keep it that way. And this is not the time for radical thinking. This is a time where we have to soften up. This is a time where we have to put our hard stance aside and listen and go slowly, because the lives of our children, the future of our country, our economy, our livelihood is at stake. So this is the very, very right time that we need to sit down and talk, sit down and dialogue, putting all hard stances aside, because there is what happened, it has happened, it is past, and there's what we are having, what we are facing at this point. And the best way to go about it is to sober up, listen, and talk for the future of our country. That is my tackle today.
All right. So, in other news, Kadundu South MP Gigi Kagombe has taken a motion to Parliament to terminate the retirement benefits of the immediate retired President Uhuru Kenyatta, Raila Odinga, and Kalonzo Musyoka. Notice reads the Clark National Assembly Parliament Buildings, Nairobi, dear sir, notice of motion, termination of retirement benefits for immediate retired President, retired Prime Minister, and the 10th Vice President. I'm writing to submit a notice of motion for approval by your office as detailed below, to be discussed and deliberated upon by the National Assembly. And is requesting that the government terminate the pension payments to the said individuals until they stop engaging in politics. When they retire from politics, that is when they can enjoy their pension. That is not me, but I'm quoting Gigi Kagombe, who believes that Raila Odinga, Uhuru Kenyatta, and Kalonzo Musyoka are earning retirement benefits illegally because they are still very active on the political front. Well, let's see how that goes on in Parliament. Kipkembaito, I support Samba on the issue of dealing with Baba because we are setting a very bad precedent. Because in future, a leader will rise and mobilize masses and require to be accommodated in government. Is that where you want us to go? Paul Chobe, accommodation, Raila will make opposition useless. Where will the other leaders go? Okay. And umepea Raila opposition request stronghold yake. Good to see you, Joanna Samba. Bye-bye. Thank you. Always a pleasure to have you. This has been the Tackle, the Siasa Wednesday edition of the 3rd of May, 2023. And we've been having a conversation around the political happenings that are going on in the country. I hope we've been able to give you enough information and details and conversation as we would. And we'll pick up again tomorrow on the Diaspora edition with kina Joel Arama, kina Keja Graphics, wangwana wengi huko, kina Alfred Sargent, kina Brian Coach. We'll be having the Diaspora edition yesterday tomorrow led by Joel Arama. We've been having Areba Samba, who is an advocate, and also been having Esther, who is a political analyst. Always a pleasure to have you, ladies and gentlemen.
Pleasure.
Thank you for coming.
Have a good day.
Every Tackler has been with us, tuning in from diaspora and the locals. Always a pleasure to have you. We are because you are. This is the Tackle, and it ends now. Bye-bye.